Now we're reading Shabbos' Shir, Chof. And now the Alter Rebbe says, like, Mamash Moedendik. He says, Vehine. We spoke yesterday, is this, that when a person is impoverished, he has to weigh his lachem l'fiyatov against another person's lachem l'fiyatov, but not his lachem l'fiyatov against another person's lachem l'fiyatov. So if you have enough for bread, and you want money for other things, you're not allowed to put those other things before somebody else's bread. Look, the Rebbe Zewah, Pishur, Zadin Agam, and that's only according to the halacha specific, directly. However, but I must to be sure, even in a case where what I just said isn't so true. In other words, that the Chassidim in Russia were so poor that they literally did not have enough for their own lechem l'fiyatov, for their own kitin shamayim. It was not a case of zevach mishpacha. It's appropriate for each person. Shalei l'daktik, and to be so particular. To insist on following the letter of the law. To push his life. Make sure to go inward and beyond the line of the judgment. And to worry about himself. Based on what the Chazal tell us, any person who is very, very precise and very particular, ultimately comes to this chas v'shom. In other words, when you are from to the letter of the law, there's a Gemara that says that the Beis Mikdash was destroyed because they followed the law to the letter. The Rebbe says there has to be Vasisa Yashav Ateiv. Even if your taka don't have enough. The Rebbe is saying, don't be so medactic to figure out how much your needs are, because when you're so medactic, then the Eibush is going to be medactic, and you don't want that. So this is the first of 5 points. The Rebbe is going to make 5 points that all argue one nakuda, and the nakuda is that even when you don't have enough for yourself, you should still squeeze yourself and give tzedakah. The first one is because the Eibush is medactic with us, we're medactic with others. That's first point number 1. Again, point number 2. Each one of us needs the Rachmanis of the Eibush all the time. And an arousal from below dafka. Every hour and every minute. To arouse our Rachmanis and those others who need Rachman. And the point, of course, is that when we're me'eded Rachman Rabbim on others, Bisarus ad Latata, Isarus ad Eliela, the Eibush that give me Rachman Rabbanos, V'chol HaMa'am, makes love of anybody who squeezes his heart. V'kevish Rachmav and suppresses his compassion. It doesn't matter what the reason is. Geidim kach lamayla, he affects on high as well. Lichpeish v'chuli chas v'sholem. That Eibush should suppress his Rachman. This is about a second argument. The first argument is you don't want to be medactic, so the Eibush shouldn't be medactic. Second argument is you don't want to be kevish rachmim, so the Eibush shouldn't be kevish rachmim. And now goes number 3. Umaga, moreover, point number 3. Ki other main tadik ba'aretz. This is a pasuk. There is not a person.
Isn't that basically somebody who just wants to...
L'cheira, one is speaking about the diktuk. In other words, one is speaking about shlila, another is speaking about chiyuv. Not to be misasek in shlila, and not to take away a chiyuv. L'cheira. Umaga, moreover, ki the main tadik ba'aretz. There's no man who is righteous upon the land, who only does good all the time and never sins. Tzedakah cleans and it protects from punishment, like the Rebbe said in Niger Tshuva Perek Aleph, right? That people used to fast. You have it in 2 places in Niger Tshuva Perek Aleph, and one other place where people fasted Nishtat Tshuva, or people fasted instead of Yisurim. Okay, and in this respect, tzedakah is the healing of the body and the healing of the soul. Mamish, a skin for a skin. Everything that a person possesses, yitin bad nafshi, a person gives for his own soul. In other words, like the halacha that Rebbe brings it in, he gets a tshuva earlier. He gets tshuva siman yud. I'm sorry, he gets the keddish siman yud, and he gets a tshuva perik gimel, and you also have in kuntas acharin. The idea that even though there's a shear, how much tzedakah you're allowed to give. Right? What is the shear? What's the shear? But when you're giving tzedakah as refuah, there's no limit. So maybe this is the third reason to give tzedakah, even when you don't have enough for yourself, as even refuah nefesh. And now goes number 4. B'shagam, moreover, point number 4. Honor mamina b'minim, we all believe. Ki tzedakah, when a person gives tzedakah, you're actually lending the money to the Eibush, and the Eibush has to pay it back. And this is one of those cases where the Eibush guarantees to deliver takinel mazah gashmi mazah maiseu bagola didan. Kidiksiv, as the pasuk says, Bal v'ad Hashem chein dal. You're lending God if you're loaning, giving money, if you're having compassion on a poor person. The Gemara says, Rabbi Gamliel said, Rabbi Yechanan said, that if not for the fact that the Torah would say it, we would never be able to say it. You're giving money to tzedakah, you're loaning money to the Meibish. And the reward is paid doubly in this world. That although the schar kol mitzvahs leika be'elam hazeh, there's no reward for mitzvahs in this life, but this exception is tzedakah levar mitzvah besides for tzedakah. Lefishi teiv labriyas, because tzedakah is good for people as well. Could easily say perikama, as it says in the end of the first perik of the kedushin. And in those mitzvahs that the other meichel perik saying be'elam hazeh, it's because it's an inyan that teiv labriyas. The Gersa Kedesh Yudzayin, the follower of Gersa Kedesh is going to follow up on this point, and it almost seems like the Bnei Agon and Machaba, the Alter Rebbe's children, when they were Masada, the Igris Kedesh, they put Yudzayin after Tezayin because the end of Tezayin becomes the beginning of Yudzayin. That although we say there's no schar for mitzvahs ne'elam hazeh, one of the few exceptions, it's tzedakah because it's Teiv Labris. There's a Sikh from the Rebbe, or the Sikh in the Rebbe, on Shiluch HaKan, the same as at the Chulin, Rebbe's Pashas Kiseitze, 2 weeks ago, where the Rebbe explains by Arichis this question, this issue of schar in this world versus not schar in this world, and based on the Maisa mit Elisha Acher, and if Elisha Acher would only know what his grandson would say, schar and mitzvah hayam aleka v'ot nishar up for Yiddish v'ech, the whole Arichis. So the Rebbe explains the idea that for mitzvahs and amlach avede, there's paydas be'elam hazeh. So you have schar in this world but kiflayim. Okay, so this is already the fourth point, that since tzedakah is a tevla briyas mitzvah, you'll get schar elam hazeh b'kiflayim. V'gam, now goes point number 5, and this too is very interesting, and that is that yesh lachush la'eini chazashom. You have to worry about being punished if you're very, very precise about not giving what you don't have. And what is the case? That the din is when all of his friends are mobilized for a mitzvah, and he doesn't join them. So from the Gemara that when everybody in your chabura does something good, and you are misalik yourself in the chabura, it's what's it called? This gay to do. So there's an einish. I'll gives 5 explanations to give tzedakah. Not only your zevach mishpacha before somebody else's lechem lefiyatov, but even your lechem lefiyatov before somebody else's lechem lefiyatov. And the Alter Rebbe concludes, those who will listen to me, Hashem will answer them. Hashem will give them a bracha of tev. In all matters of good. Hashem should be good to those who are good and fair. Like their desire, and the desire of the Alter Rebbe, who's greeting them, with his whole heart and his whole soul. This again, this is 2 nekudas. To never put your zevach mishpacha before somebody else's lachem afiyatav, and secondly, even lachem afiyatav against lachem afiyatav, you shouldn't be medactic so much.